Hello guys, welcome to Shanty Shop Mechanic. I'm Paddy, and in this week I'm going to be delving into this abandoned Techumseh powered go-kart that hasn't seen fun in about 5 years. So join me as I go into it and see if I can get the thing back turning and burning. Getting up to speed with this machine, this was given to me by a customer to look over and try and get running. It has been abandoned for the past 5 years, just under a tarp. As you can see, there's still a decent amount of vegetation covering it. It's all there. You can see the lovely leather seat and important dials there, which with a very ambitious 30 mph speed limit. All the pedals move, and they seem to do something over here, as you can see through the vegetation. Thankfully none of them are seized. I'm sure they still work. Seatbelt is good, which is important. And of course it has a Techumseh engine, which if you've seen the other videos that I've done, I'm not a huge fan of them. However, this one does seem to have compression. Not just on that one. An idea of how long this thing has been lying up, or it's been in the element at least. The tip of the spark plug there is completely corroded up, but I'm just going to test it for spark. See, it's still got it. Yep, it's still got it. Excellent. Over the week that I've had it, I've just oiled a few bits and pieces on it, mainly the chain. It's still quite stiff. You can see there's a bit of a kink there. If it wasn't so tough, there we go, you can hear it popping out, and now it seems to be released. I've loosened up the steering as well by oiling that, and I've just pumped up the tyres. Other than that, I've done nothing else with it. As I mentioned, this is a Techumseh 5-horse. I have a previous experience working on these machines. They can be quite tricky to get back up and running, especially after long periods of time being static, especially with regards to the carbs. They can be quite finicky and they just don't seem to run as well as they did. I'm really hoping this thing doesn't fight me. But then again, everything seems to be coming back together with this machine. Taking a quick look in the fuel tank, it's actually in very good condition, especially with these plastic fuel tanks. They seem to be a lot better than the metal ones over time. It's a little shiny down there, but a little bit of varnish. It smells kind of like paint thinner, but it'll be fine. Moving towards the carb, you can see that quite crusty on the outside, a lot of webs and debris and stuff like that from it lying up. The one good thing about these engines on a go-kart as opposed to like the generator or a power washer is the accessibility to the carb. It's very easy to get to the bowl. The lawnmower Techumseh engine, you have to take the intake off in order to remove the bowl out of the way to get the likes of a spanner. I'm going to drop this bowl now, and hopefully I will see a very clean carb. No fuel coming out of it just yet. I'd say it's dried up at this stage. Okay. Oh wow, that is pretty bad. If I bring you around here, as you can see, a lot of sediment, a lot of corrosion of the bowl, and this is a good example of what ethanol does to petrol over a long period of time. Yeah, definitely needs to be cleaned out. Definitely the jet in the bolt as well, and probably need to take the carb off and give that a little clean through too. Quickly, I'm going to check out the condition of the air filter. Haven't done this despite dropping the bowl. Okay, excellent. It's a foam filter because you're able to reuse these, wash them out and then re-oil them lightly, and that's what traps the dirt. Looking in there, a little bit crusty. Must have been a little bit of air getting past the foam filter somewhere. I'd say it was there where my finger is because it's kind of crushed in and bent. Before, do the same thing as the carb and clean that out and re-oil this. An interesting thing about the air box is I found this little red card, and what it does is it's the cold weather baffle, and if you can see, it reads out the cold weather baffle position S for summer above 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees, and then position W for winter below 32 Fahrenheit 0 degrees. So this is the winter position, you slot it in there, and for the summer one it's where I've actually found it there. Okay, I've just pushed down on this bowl when I was trying to take it apart, and just pure water is coming out of it. No smell of petrol and has the consistency of water. That's what happens with ethanol. It attracts water into the fuel tank, and that's what you're left with, and that's why everything's so corroded. I have the carb just hanging there, just to give you an idea of how crusty this is. This really hasn't been run in a very long time. Just need to remove this fuel line and I'll be able to get a deep dive into this carb. What manner of hell have I got myself into with this machine? Just kidding, it should be fine. Just need to give it a bit of a scrub, and it seems to be holding a seal between the seat and needle, which is half the battle. This thing is so caked in corrosion that I didn't even know that there was meant to be jet holes here. The amount of sediment that was built up was just flush with the actual shaft of the bolt. You can see what I'm talking about now, where I've actually cleaned out the holes, and if you look closely you can see daylight coming through that hole in the shaft of the bolt, and I've done that with this handy dandy little crow drill bit, and these are actually quite essential to have when working with jet for sizing jets to allow more petrol to flow through. With the carb assembled and it being a lot cleaner on the inside than it is on the outside, it's time to top her up with a bit of petrol and go from there. I've filled this up, and as you can see I've taken the wheels off the table, so if it does run it's not going to engage the clutch and drive off and crash into something expensive. Without further delay, I'm going to start turning this thing over. Don't know if there's a choke, I don't see one. The primer is quite hard, so let's just get it going. It is priming, because when I push this button here I can see the fuel coming up. Should want to work. Oh wow, okay. Come on, I know you want to work. Okay. Still seems to have a fuel delivery issue. Kind of wants to run. I don't know why. It doesn't want to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tie up the accelerator pedal. Maybe it might give it a little bit more air, because it seems to be getting enough petrol. It just mightn't be getting enough air to burn that petrol. The throttle tied up nice and tightly. I'll give it another whack. Why won't you not run for me? Okay, what I've done is put a new spark plug in it, and I've primed the hell out of it. Hopefully that'll make it run this time. Let's go. Good thing I took it off the table! Need to adjust the throttle a little bit. Okay, so it's been a few days since I last went at this machine. And the only thing I've done with it, other than let it sit on this table, is I've actually cut off the old chain. And the old chain was completely rusted in. It had some hard spots where it wasn't actually straightening out. And I went out and got some nice blingy gold chains This will be probably the nicest part of the go-kart, stick out like a sore thumb. I'll get this sized up and I'll put it on, and then I'll be able to service this quickly and then take it out for a spin. After 40 minutes of learning how to cut chain, I have successfully put the new chain on it. It flows quite freely now, as opposed to the old one. The old one was quite clunky, it was quite rusted, and it was actually seized in a few spots. So when making it over the teeth of either the clutch or the actual gear itself, it would jam up. I have zero idea as to what goes on in the minds of the Techumseh engineers, or what did, because what we have here is a bolt for the sump. What's necessary for it is one of these hex keys, whereas we have a normal bolt here to hold on the recoil to the left of it, and it could have been done the same way too. This would have made life so much easier, but yeah, that's Techumseh for you. This is going to be messy. Very watery. Almost has the consistency of water. Must have been a lot of petrol in it. Doesn't smell like there's any petrol in it. Oh, a few sparklies coming out of it too, but nothing major. I'm going to let that to sit for a while and then clean up around the frame. In the previous clip you saw me mess with the throttle using an adjustable spanner, not by moving the cable around but the actual bracket that holds it in. And the reason why I did that was, prior to me working on this go-kart, I was told that this go-kart went through an accident where somebody was on the back of this, amazingly, and he put their foot on the cable and it gave tension, and thus the person driving it lost control. I was actually bending it back into a place where the wheel, when it was running, wasn't moving around, so the clutch wasn't engaging, and essentially that's what you want, because not only is it bad for the clutch for it to be kind of on all the time at an idle, it's also pretty bad that it can just shoot off when you actually do eventually start it. So that's why I was messing around with the cable to make sure that the wheel, or the one-wheel drive here, actually stops when it's idling. So I've topped it up with some new goo, and I'm going to work on some miscellaneous pieces, particularly do the steering, because the front wheel is rubbing off the steering arm, which is not ideal. And then I should be able to give it an initial test run, and hopefully that might just be it. down, slow down, hold on. Slow down. Thankfully the brakes work. Okay, downhill, full blast. There's no suspension. Oh my god. Okay. Okay guys, that's going to do it for this episode. As you can see in my face that I'm very much done with this go-kart. And there's a bump in my head that's a reminder that this roll cage is a little bit too short for me. I need to wash off the evidence that I did this and bring it back to the customer. Don't worry, he knows exactly what I was doing with it. My clothes are ruined, I'm sore, wet, and I just want to go back inside, so I'll see you next week.